They want me in the picture, but not in the room. Let's talk about it. They want me for the diversity photo, for the pose, for the token representation, but not for real conversation when it matters, when things get uncomfortable. Because they want what I look like, not who I am. And when you realize that, it hits you deep. You're not being included, you're being used. Let's talk about what it feels like to be welcome for appearance, but ignored for identity.
Do we actually believe in equality or just representation? Across politics, entertainment, and business, we often hear that society is becoming more equal. We see women leading companies, black actors winning awards, and brands celebrating diversity in their campaigns. But here's the problem. These visible signs of inclusion don't necessarily mean equality has been achieved. They only mean that the system has learned a way to look progressive. Today we'll examine whether our societies truly believe in equality, or if we're simply learning to celebrate representation as a substitution for it. Representation and equality are related, but they're not the same. Representation is about presence. Who appears on our screens? Who gets promoted? And who is visible in leadership? Equality, on the other hand, is about outcomes. Who has the power, the resources, and access to opportunities? A government can have women in parliament, yet continue practices that disadvantage black workers. Representation changes how things look. Equality changes how things work.
I was getting paid $22,000, and the guy who I was co-anchoring with was getting paid $50,000. So I went into my boss and I said, he's getting paid a lot more money than I'm getting paid. And you know what my boss said? Why should you make that much money? In 1980, he said, why should you make that much money? He said, he has kids. Do you have kids? And I said, no.
I cook for 5 and you cook.
Do you have a house? And I said, no. And he said, so tell me why you need the same amount of money. And I said, well, because we're doing the same job. He says, I don't think so. And so I thought, I'll show you.
Over the last 2 decades, representation has become central to public debate. Movements like Oscars So White, Me Too, and Black Lives Matter have forced institutions to acknowledge exclusion.
You don't have a diversity problem, you have a leadership problem. The leaders in these organizations are treating symptoms of underrepresentation, like focusing on programs and philanthropy, instead of tapping into qualified pools of underrepresented talent already in the workforce. This issue of diversity comes down to behaviors of leaders who are not incentivized or held accountable for ensuring that there's a meritocracy that hires, promotes, and fires talent on the basis of performance and competence. And that's all talent.
In response, companies and governments began investing heavily in diversity initiatives. The results have been mixed. Representation improved in some areas. More visible minorities in media, more women as executives. But many of these changes are symbolic. For instance, while Fortune 500 companies now report higher diversity at the top, wage and wealth gaps by race and gender remain wide.
Statistically speaking, 70% of the entertainment industry is comprised of women. 70%.
That's a big percent.
That is a big percent. But of that amount, it's usually in most spaces, and you can look up the Annenberg Initiative for this, but it's usually less than 5% of women in a leadership role.
In film and television, non-white characters are more common, but decision-making behind the scenes, like the directors, the writers, the producers, all remain overwhelmingly dominated by white men. So overall, representation became a shortcut. Representation is attractive to institutions because it's a measurable thing and it's public. It offers visible proof of progress without actually requiring deeper reform. It's easier to add diverse faces to advertisements than to change pay structures or redistribute resources and power. In marketing, diversity also sells. Consumers reward brands that appear socially aware, even when companies behind them maintain the same labor practices. This has created what sociologists call performative diversity, gestures that look inclusive while maintaining existing hierarchies and racial disparities. If you're interested in honest conversations about society and inequality, take a moment to please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It helps the channel reach more people who want analyses, not just slogans.
Tell people all the time, you can have representation. Here's where the whole diversity and inclusion dance comes into play. You can have representation, but representation without participation causes frustration.
When societies focus on individual representation, they risk mistaking exceptions for transformation. The success of a few high-profile figures can hide the persistence of structural barriers. For example, in the United States, the election of President Barack Obama was celebrated as proof that racism had ended, even as racial disparities in income, housing, and incarceration remain the same.
You can have representation, you can have diversity, right?
Right.
But that doesn't equal inclusion. What I mean is that you can have the whole cast could be just, diverse, have women, black people, brown people, whatever it may be. But then when you have executives, you go into the executive's office,
It's still the same.
you see 30 people and one woman, and she's the assistant. And no black people.
I've been in this business for a long time. I can't remember the times I went to a room and met a black man or a woman that could say yes.
That's the truth.
In many African countries, having female ministers has not necessarily led to stronger protections for women's rights or better maternal health care outcomes. In entertainment, diverse casting often doesn't include changes in ownership or storytelling perspective. Sociologists describe this as elite capture, where diversity benefits a small group while leaving systemic inequality untouched.
Throughout my professional life, I've observed 5 ways that white people alienate black people in the office. My name's Curious Ben. I'm your Caucasity coach. Let me explain. 1, they accidentally leave them out of emails. I've seen this happen so many times, this sociopathic type of accident that allows white people to have the upper hand on information that they share with each other while not including their black co-workers. Number 2, they develop leadership teams that don't include any black people. If your leadership team doesn't include any black people, how are you truly going to represent all your employees with your leadership vision and communication? Number 3, they create cliques that don't include any of their black co-workers and then have the goddamn caucasity to say, why do all the black people eat together? Number 4, they hire and promote people that they're comfortable with, people with similar communication styles, and this means either white people or black people who are able to navigate whiteness without upsetting the white people's comfort. And number 5, they create such a toxic environment for black employees that black employees quit and move on. So white people, if you're really serious about creating workplaces that represent the communities you live in, you're going to have to tackle these 5 ways that you're currently alienating black people in the workplace. I hope this helps.
The presence of underrepresented people in elite positions can even make it harder to talk about inequality because critics are told that everyone has a chance now.
Let's take a minute today to talk about impactful diversity.
Okay.
All right, let's get into it. Diversity, look at these beautiful ladies. Diversity without inclusion and equity. You see these people sitting at the table together.
I see them.
Sharing ideas, thoughts, and opinions, and equity.
Makes sense.
See how that works?
And do.
Diversity without both of these elements, inclusion and equity, is not impactful diversity. And what do we mean by impactful diversity? Like, what does that mean? Impactful diversity is when everyone within the organization feels supported, included, heard, and involved in all areas of the organization. Because it is not enough to just have diversity present in an organization. When there are decisions being made, that diversity has to come to the table and have a seat at the table. This table we saw right here.
I remember.
Yeah, diversity needs to be present in that environment in the form of inclusion. Now let's fast forward, okay? We touched on impactful diversity. What does an organization or an environment look like where there's diversity present, but there is no inclusion or equity? What does that look like?
Questions that need answers.
Well, my friends, that looks like tokenism. Diversity without equity and inclusion is tokenism. And this right here is the death knell to any success that you are trying to see implementing any diversity measures in an organization. Tokenism can cause all types of issues. For example, it can cause disengagement within an organization. It could also cause the company to lose the talent that they have, and it ultimately works against whatever goals or success the organization was trying to implement by bringing in certain diversity measures.
Representation, yes, it's still very valuable. Visibility challenges stereotypes and can inspire others to pursue similar paths. But real equality requires structural change, like equal pay for equal work, affordable education and healthcare, laws that protect marginalized communities from discrimination, fair access to credit, property, and political power. Equality means changing institutions so that success isn't determined by race, gender, or class background. That's more difficult and less photogenic than a diversity campaign, but it's also the only path to genuine fairness. So in conclusion, representation is the beginning of progress, not the end of it. It can open doors, but if the structure of the house stays the same, most people will still be left outside. The question isn't whether society looks diverse, it's whether it functions fairly. Until power, wealth, and opportunity are evenly distributed, representation alone will remain a surface solution. Thank you for tuning in, and let's keep asking the hard questions that move us from visibility to equality.
I think the word diversity is wrong. I think that the idea of diversification of the screen is not quite right because it's actually confusing everyone. And what's happening is we're mistaking that for we have to include a person from every single race and every single background and every single part of the human experience in every show or everything that we make. That's not reality, and it's not authentic. I never grew up with a group of friends where there was someone who represented every ethnic group in my group of friends. I don't know who the hell grew up like that. What's confusing is when we feel like we need to see, look, it's great to see your own face on screen, but don't, please, not on my account, don't put a Polynesian in your thing just because you feel you need to. It has to make sense. I don't want to see one token Polynesian character in your show, okay? That's just weird. And, unless it makes sense. What I want to see is a fully Polynesian, controlled Polynesian story that's written by and show run by, okay? I don't want to see, when we make our things, don't give us a white showrunner to tell us the rules and to tell us how to do things. Let us figure it out, and let us figure out the structure of the story in our own way, from our own experience. And by decolonizing the screen, what I mean is just don't make it so white.